Heff here from Epic Rides and Tours. Hopefully a very easy to follow video about how to adjust the parking brake. Anyone who has a late model Ural will know all about these little beauties. They seem to need adjusting every 5 minutes or 6 if you're lucky. Anyone who reckons they lasted 7 minutes is just boasting. Anyway, let's get on. Point to note that before you start removing anything for this first adjustment, leave the parking brake handle in the off position as shown in the slide. Okay, we've got about 5 parts to this assembly. It's on the left hand side of the rear wheel. Towards the top on the right, you'll see a coiled spring. That's actually part of the parking brake cable. Then below that, to the right, is a rubber boot. There is the brake lever and the silver nut. The silver nut's 15 mils and doesn't take much to take off. The lever doesn't show very well in here, but it's that sort of greyish, charcoaly stripe between the nut and the boot. And below them, you can just see a rest stop for the lever. That is the furthest back the lever can reach when the park brake is off. And there, you've got a 15mm socket, 1/2 inch drive ratchet, and it really doesn't take a lot of effort to undo that nut. Okie dokie. This is the spline that the brake lever sits on. Once you've removed the nut, you can slide the brake lever off quite easily. And yeah, then comes the good work. Okay, with the spline exposed, you stand towards the left-hand side of the bike and rotate that spline clockwise until it stops. Finger tight only, folks. Finger tight only. And at that point, the brake pads are actually in contact with the brake disc. So what you want to do is just back it off a touch, maybe a millimetre, maybe even only half. And then you can replace the lever, ensuring that it's as close as possible, if not in contact with that metal tab that you see underneath the boot. That's your off position. Okay, once you've done that, you have to turn the parking brake on by flipping the lever into the position shown. Then you move on to adjusting. Hello, Buster. Yes, I know. It must be your feeding time because you're making so much fuss. Hang on. There he is. Hello. Goodbye. Never work with kids and animals. Anyway, yeah, turn the parking brake on and you're ready to do the next adjustment. Okay, this little assembly consisting of 3 nuts. There's an elongated nut which is held in place by a lock nut, and then there's the other nut, or 4 if you're including the bloke who's operating the thing. You'll notice that the cable is held in place by a metal saddle. It's actually got a gap at one end, so you can easily slide the cable out of there to reach this adjustment assembly more easily. Rightio, the keen-eyed among you will notice 2 spanners. One, an open ender, 10mm, operating the elongated nut. The pipe spanner is actually on the 3rd nut, and there's a lock nut between them. That has actually been loosened in this photo. And yeah, what you basically have to do here, remembering that the brake handle is in the on position for this adjustment, is to turn that elongated nut a couple of full turns and then put the brake on and test by shoving the bike and pulling the bike to see if you've got full brake. If not, then you do another couple of turns And a good hint here is when you actually put the brake on, you should feel that the cable is under a fair amount of tension. Now, on top of that, the really sharp-eyed of you will notice that I am no longer wearing the shirt that I did at the beginning of this little video. That's because this part of this little video has been redone. You wouldn't. I need to collect some of the bloopers. You know, I'll see how I can go and try uploading them to YouTube one time. I should hear people giggling all over the country. Okay, so the removal of the pipe spanner isn't too easy if you move it towards the lock nut and number 3 nut. So you'll notice that between my fingers there, I've got a little rubber boot which fits over the distal end. Distal? That's a bit medical, isn't it? Yeah, the rear end of the elongated nut. And so you just pull that boot backwards, the pipe spanner slides off the elongated nut and can come away easily. Replace the boot and then shove the cable back in underneath that little black saddle, and she'll be right. Now, points to note here, I've tested this with my son being in the sidecar. Now, with all our bike kit combined, we must weigh close to 120, 130 kilos. This was in very cold weather, so we had a lot of clothing on. That's my excuse. Anyway, there's a set of traffic lights that everyone in Port Macquarie will know on the corner of Park and Buller Streets. There's a fairly steep incline coming down towards those lights, and I pulled on the parking brake, let go of the handbrake, let go of the foot brake, and 560, 570 kilos of bike plus us held dead steady. So it does work. You just got to do it right. Okie dokie. I did promise to tell you something about the third adjustment, which I don't recommend you do personally. You can see there the park brake handle is in the off position. Behind that you can see a rubber boot which covers some adjusting nuts. Don't touch it, guys. The metal that handle is made out of is a very soft aluminium, and take it from me, if you try adjusting that end of the cable, you just chew the handle to pieces. How do I know? Because I bloody done it. Okay, so you know someone's daft enough to have tried, but he's good enough to tell you about it. Don't touch it, guys. The first 2 adjustments do the job perfectly. Thanks for watching. See you next time.